Hi, I'm Professor Michele Barbour and welcome to the Enterprise Sessions. Today I'm speaking with Wuge Briscoe, Professor of Physical Chemistry at the University of Bristol. Wuge, welcome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Michele. It's great to be here.
So, Wuge, what I'd like to talk about today is your collaboration with a company called Snow Business. So tell me a little bit about what you do with Snow Business and what you're trying to achieve.
In a sentence, Michele, we teamed up with Snow Business to develop two eco-friendly products, which have been used in lots of films, TV, staged event for falling snow special effect. Now, Snow Business happened to be the world leader in the special effects, winter special effects for snow and other things. The market is very challenging, and it has become increasingly strict in terms of lowering environmental impact. So they were searching for new products that is environmentally friendly, but at the same time economically viable. So we used a little bit of our experimental and scientific expertise and developed two new formulations with Snow Business.
What were companies using before your products came to realization? What was the problem with the previous version of TV Snow, if I can call it that?
Yes, so perhaps first I can say a little bit about this special effect. This is the falling snow effect. So what actually it consists of to be the cluster of bubbles and of the right size, and they look like snow, but they're actually not snow. Prior to 2016, I believe, the market-leading snow solution would be made from sort of petrochemical ingredients. So the falling snow effect it generated would cause respiratory discomfort for the cast and crew. Secondly, the residues left behind by this falling snow actually could have harmful effects on, for example, on the grass, on the very ecologically sensitive animal, for example. So that was really not desirable. And against that backdrop is the increasingly changing regulations and rules that actually would have become much more strict in terms of environmental requirement.
So it's a really clear rationale, right? I mean, as a movie watcher and nothing to do with movie production, I had no idea that all those tons of falling snow, quote unquote, I've seen over the years was actually causing the actors discomfort and causing the local environment distress. So tell me a little bit about the products. So how did you get around those challenges? What do you use instead in simple terms?
If you can envisage those tiny bubbles, the size around millimeters, you can make bubbles, for example, using the Fairy liquid in your kitchen. So they consist of very thin water film, width of your hair, that thin, and they have to be stabilized by molecules. And those molecules typically would derive from petrochemicals, polymers, surfactants, and other ingredients. It is those molecules that are necessary to stabilize those bubbles that could cause harmful effect environmentally and also to the crew. So the challenge was the complexity associated with a multi-component system. What we managed to do with trial and error, but also guided by our fundamental understanding on how those molecules could pack together, interact with other molecules, and give you the interfacial structure and sort of stability, we managed to find the molecules to stabilize those clusters of bubbles with reduced environmental impact.
Why did you start out doing that? Was it for the purpose of creating environmentally benign fake snow? Or was it for another purpose? Why did you get into this in the first place?
We were introduced to Snow Business by the RED, our
tech transfer team.
Yes, and initially they sort of described this challenge to us and the need from Snow Business, so making eco-friendly falling snow. I actually turned them down. I was very reluctant. I said, wow, no, this is just not something I do. So I really did not quite make that link. That is what we, and our knowledge, what we understand, is relevant to such a complex formulation. So I did not reach out. I did not, it was not my idea to design this at all. I had to be persuaded, and I was very reluctant to participate initially.
I can understand that, and I think that's quite a familiar story, actually, particularly people in your discipline, but others as well.
I really have to give the credit to the colleagues from Red team, and they were able to actually identify the expertise. I'm just very grateful that they found me and they persuaded me to participate in this collaboration. Really, that was really outstanding. They were really skilled and they created opportunity.
What happened after that? So did you then effectively pick it up with the company and go ahead, or did you still need support from our professional services colleagues?
We had this initial idea on the project. Then, of course, like a lot of projects we do now, you need the resources to support the project. Money, if you like. I think the university, in my case, supported us very strongly via something called the Impact Acceleration Grant, and that was funded by the EPSRC, the major funding body here in the UK. And so we were able to support student Lizzie, really an outstanding student, to undertake the research for a period of 1 year. And we also had funding from the snow business to provide support as well. And their insight, their technical insight, their know-how in terms of the market, in terms of the requirement for the product. But I think our university has provided a very strong supporting mechanism. To start with, I was introduced to the company. Secondly, they provided this funding mechanism to provide resources for us to do this. And throughout the project, I think they required some coordination. And that was my first experience. And I never thought I would do anything useful at all. And it took me a little while to learn how to interact with the company, to really listen to their needs, and how to translate our fundamental knowledge to something so practical, so complex, so impossible. And I think our University Red colleague was there all the time, very supportive throughout. And of course, this turned out to be a good story, and that we didn't manage to do something useful. Maybe I can just tell you this thing. Actually, the first time we took our formulation to Stroud, and the company is based in the old mill, water mill. So they had the whole company, not too many of them, out in the field. We're going to produce some falling snow using our solution. And they had this machine here. So everyone was expecting, was lots of expectations. And it did nothing. So the fluid just came out of this tube. And I was so embarrassed. That was the first visit. And of course then, we continued to work with company and with the support of university Red colleagues. The next time we went to the snow business to demonstrate our new formulation. So he did a blind test. So basically he benchmarked our formulation, several of them, two are very good, and there were others as well, against the market leading product, which was less environmentally friendly. And in fact, he could not tell which one was which. And after the success of the formulation, we received further support from the Impact Acceleration Account and to develop further lay down snow, so not falling anymore, but these bubbles on the ground. And so they require different stability, but scientifically they are made from bubbles of different composition, different stability.
I love the analogy you gave of our colleague in partnerships team acting as a translator. This is something I've encountered as well, that it can feel almost like you are speaking a different language when you encounter somebody who, if you're an academic and you're working with a company. Do you feel the experience has helped you become proficient in that language? Have you yourself learned skills or approaches that you might use if working with a different company in future?
Prior to this experience, I think I was both arrogant and ignorant. So I thought I was doing fundamental research. I wouldn't be able to, and I was not willing to contribute to solving actual real problems. Through this, after this experience, I think actually I've learned to appreciate the challenge, intellectual and scientific challenge associated with the complexity of a multi-component system that is in a real product, real formulation. And through the interactions with our university red colleague, who is very patient with us, and with our industrial partner, and I've really learned how to appreciate, the fun and excitement of solving real problems. I now am quite motivated and inspired by being able to help solving problems. I'm currently helping another colleagues to develop wind turbine lubricant. You'd find actually the formulation challenge is very similar to this falling snow and lay down snow formulation actually. So in a way I've benefited directly, I've been educated by this experience.
That's fascinating. I wasn't aware of that latest development. It sounds to me like it might, correct me if I'm wrong, be an example of almost that serendipity that sometimes we see in these situations where you developed a product for a particular application and then it emerges that it has quite a different secondary application as well. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. I think it is because the fundamental research we do, often you work on pure system, but the knowledge you derive is broadly applicable. Now, you've combined that with appreciation of how such knowledge can be applied in a more complex system. That's very empowering. So if I talk about currently we're working on wind turbine formulation. Again, if you distill this, again is that you have a quite complex multi-component system. You want to replace an active ingredient with the more eco-friendly ingredient. At the same time, it has to effectively serve the purpose. But in terms of the principle, is to identify the active ingredient, to understand the interactions, both synergy and competition between this ingredient and a multitude of other ingredients. Definitely, I've been educated, so I'm also actually very passionate about doing those things. It's fun. It's fun.
I always love it when the word fun comes into these conversations, and that's a word I feel very strongly about. Work should be fun. You've come from academic, very happy doing their fundamental research. It's important, it matters to you, it motivates you, to reluctant entrepreneurial academic who has to be sort of convinced and persuaded by some of our colleagues, to someone who's now actively seeking out the opportunities to work in this way. Absolutely. So if you were to look back, 5-10 years, what would you say to younger Wuge? What advice would you give yourself knowing what you know now?
I would have really reached out to such opportunities more willingly, more readily and earlier, but also articulate the link between the fundamental research we do and the industrial or practical problems. So that's something I've learned is to understand and appreciate, identify, and also have the ability to articulate the importance of the link between fundamental knowledge and the practical problems.
Coming back to the technology, to your green snow, if I can call it that, how far has this technology gone? What's the reach now? Is it used locally? Has it been used in film? So what's the progression of the technology thus far?
Yeah. So it's, before I tell you what I know, I should really actually acknowledge that, if you like, to impart the impact, this is the full credit would go to Snow Business. So university and our team, we helped to develop the formulation. Then they took it, they actually scaled up, developed this into the products. And I can tell you with great joy, because really it's their work. And first, it had significant impact on the company, so it really consolidated their world-leading sort of role in this as the winter special effect with the eco-friendly credential. And the new formulation cut the cost compared to what they were using by a factor of 10.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, of course, most importantly, it removed those harmful effects to the satisfaction, to a degree of satisfaction. We'll always do better, of course. Then, because of new formulation, you can make very concentrated solution, which means this would reduce the transport cost and CO2 emission.
Okay, yeah. So for just the trucks taking it up the motorway, you need less weight.
Right. So this is actually the sort of direct impact, and because of this, and the acquired international accreditation, I do not know what they are, but a number of them, and they give them unique credibility. But at the same time, they actually really raised the awareness of this environmental issue for the film industry. Now, they have also created opportunities for themselves. The products have been used at the Eden Project, at Glastonbury, large number of Hollywood blockbuster films, TV and commercial, music video production. They've actually been used in places where you wouldn't think it would have been used. There was a team from Stanford and Caltech. They were actually testing a new wind turbine. They used the falling snow, this surfactant solution, to study the wind flow pattern.
Oh, it's like a diagnostic, so that you could see the way the wind was moving.
Yeah. I think what is really important to demonstrate to this small company is that to formulate an environmentally friendly product can be economically viable, without which I don't think they would have survived. In fact, it has given them the edge to open up new opportunities and to consolidate, to expand on their market share, actually.
So this technology's got an extraordinary reach. It's gone from a collaborative project between one university and one SME to global sales and snow falling on film sets around the world. I mean, when you go to the cinema to watch a film and snow is falling, do you have a little moment of pride? Do you have a frisson of excitement thinking that's my chemistry right there on the screen?
I actually did take my children recently to see a film. I think it was called The Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore.
Yeah.
There was some sort of falling snow effect. So yeah, I did get a bit excited. Of course, I'm trying to impress my children.
Of course, yeah.
And they wouldn't believe me, of course. They remain unimpressed.
So you're going to have to cook some up at home now just to prove to them that you could do this.
Yep.
So you mentioned that a lot of this work was done by a couple of your members of your research team. So tell me a bit more about what roles they played.
So Michelle, I've benefited a great deal from working in a very dynamic sort of academic environment. And the department itself is being very supportive. It's really encouraged me to collaborate, interact with industrial partners. And in terms of work, I must actually really say and give credit to our really talented students, specifically Lizzie, and who is a master's student. So this project, supported by the EPSRC Impact Acceleration Grant, funded a 1-year full-time master by research program. Lizzie was the one who did all the hard work and did all the formulation and did all the measurements. We did all the work. Now, this work actually has made further progress. And we now are designing, or have designed, indeed formulated, lay-down snow solution. And that work was undertaken by Dr. Anna Slastanova, who did her PhD. And of course, then she had opportunity to apply her fundamental knowledge to helping the snow business with the formulation challenge.
What do you think it brings to their experience? What do you think it gives them that a more traditional academic project might not?
The first one I would mention is the communication skills in terms of defining the problem, understanding the challenge, and articulating their finding in such a way. And I think that's really, really sort of enjoyable for the students. The second thing I think is actually learning to appreciate the power of the knowledge, fundamental understanding, but also the limitation of our laboratory results. One challenged and confronted with the complexity of real-world application. In that sense, they've really developed their problem-solving skills.
Very useful skills, whatever they go on to do in their career, be it an academic career, an industry career, or even a hybrid of the two, which I think is a growing model, isn't it? Wuge, thank you so much for your time and your perspective today. I think what you say is really useful, not only for mid-career academics like us, maybe considering trying a new direction, but also for the perspective of our students and research associates who are thinking about their career options. So I'm really grateful for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle.
If something we've talked about today has piqued your interest and might be relevant to your research, then please do feel free to contact us. And enjoy the rest of the enterprise sessions.